to see the Odyssey today. One phenomenal movie. I want to do a video on giving kind of my review, my thoughts, probably sometime this week. Christopher Nolan, freaking genius of a director. And even after all the hoopla, people online with everything, it just turned out to be such a great movie. Probably might be really be movie of the year. Obviously, we got some heavy hitters later on in the year with Dune, and even Avengers Doomsday. But as of right now, it might be movie of the year for me. Well, I plan on going to see it again. But just being in the theater and watching Odyssey really just cemented why I love movies so much. I love stories. I love seeing people put their fingerprints, when it comes to directing and telling stories and the way that they tell stories and things like that. It just, I think stories are, even with this, right, with the Odyssey is like centuries old, right? And when you go back through and even with the original language that it was written in, and they had to translate it, and we accredit it to Homer, but a lot of people don't even know if that was really even a perfect person that existed. And then even now with the iterations that we get in modern day, there are still a little bit of interpretations, because there really isn't a concrete source material, right? You think of like Lord of the Rings, we know J.R. Tolkien, right? That is the concrete source material. So the movie, used that to build off that, and then anything after that. But with the Odyssey, right, the Iliad and Odyssey, or specifically the Odyssey, right, there really isn't a universally defined source, like objective source material. And so, when people adapt it, they kind of give their own flair and taste and touch on it. So, Nolan definitely did it with this movie. And like I said, I'll save kind of my review thoughts later on. But, even with the Odyssey, it's centuries old. And a lot of people didn't even know if something of this magnitude could be done. But it's a story, right? And you got to think, when it was originally written, originally came out, right? It was a story that shaped and changed people's lives. And I think that's why I love movies so much. And even like TV shows and stuff like that, is like these stories shape and change people's lives. Like people, like, we are made up of stories, right? We are who we are. I'm sure you go ask somebody, who has a nickname, right? Why do you have this nickname? They're going to share a story with you. Hey, why did you decide to go into this field or this career? They're going to share a story with you, right? Why is XYZ, why is Spider-Man your favorite superhero? They're going to share a story with you, right? Oh, when growing up, he was the first hero I seen on TV, and I just resonated with so well, and I had Spider-Man everything. And my 10th birthday, it was a Spider-Man birthday, and it was my greatest birthday ever, right? It's going to be stories. We are made, like, as humans, we are made up of stories. And even when you get into like oral tradition, right, and like the centuries and centuries of even like the centuries and centuries of us, civilizations sharing and telling stories and passing down legends and these things that help shake people, help encourage men to go and fight for nations, that encourage civilizations to keep fighting on, right? These stories were fundamental. You even think biblically, right? All throughout the Old Testament going into New Testament, what was the stories that they centered around, right? The story of Exodus, right? You think of the story of Exodus, like that was a story, with the Passover that helped shape them as a people, right? You think of Genesis, right? They had the book of Genesis, and they understood, like, that shaped them as a people, right? That they are the children of Abraham, right? The seed of Abraham, that Yahweh is their God. And so stories have just been, and now obviously even makes sense. Like, God is the capital capital T storyteller, right? The greatest storyteller ever. I mean, he used stories, right? Especially with the biblical narrative, to, you know, help bring us our faith, to tell the coming of the Messiah, right? For our everyday living, right? These stories that shape us, right? We read the Bible, we're reading stories, right? Even though, we understand and know that they are real, that they are true, but they're still stories, and they shaped us. And the ancient church, these stories shaped us. We understand that we are a people because we go through Genesis, we go through Exodus, right? You go through so on and so forth. We read the Gospels. It's the story of the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, right? The book of Acts, it's the story of the church, right? Go on and continuing. But stories are just so pivotal. And I realized, like, my love for movies, my love for all these things, is stories like shape my life. Like, they help me become who I am. They help me understand certain things. They help me process certain things. And so I love stories. I think stories are important. I think we should tell more stories. I think this is why people should go see movies. People should watch movies all the time. People should have their favorite movies, whatever it is, whatever it is. People should have their favorite movies, whatever. But I love stories. So tell more stories, please.